Hi, I'm Pam Blizzard from Recovered Peace.
And I'm Lachelle Burkett with Hope Redefined.
And I'm Bonnie Burns of Strong Wives. We're so glad you're joining us.
All right. Welcome back to Hope for Wives. We are actually going to make a add-on or a part 2 to our 90-day sex fast podcast that we posted a while ago because we got some really great questions from our listeners and we felt like it warranted another episode. So ladies, thanks for coming back and letting us continue this conversation and speaking to some of the questions that our listeners have submitted. So I'm just going to go through them and I'd love to hear you guys respond and let us just share our thoughts on each of these. Does that sound great?
Sure, let's do it.
Good plan. All right. So here's one of our first questions. The question is, under what circumstances is the fast helpful and when might it be harmful or unnecessary? I think that we answered the what circumstance might be helpful in our first podcast, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on when might a 90-day sex fast be harmful or unnecessary?
I don't know if it's harmful or unnecessary, but I think there could be a glitch if someone's not agreeing to it because it is supposed to be mutual. If he is supposed to be moving towards recovery and he's not agreeing to it, I think he needs to talk more with his CSAT. I can't think of a situation where it would be harmful or unnecessary.
I would agree with you. I think it's primarily for the addicted person to help rewire their brain. And if I know a lot of men still fighting recovery, because gosh, that doesn't happen, right? We'll say, oh, but that's not necessary. I don't need to do that. That's not going to do anything for me. So that might be an objection that a wife might hear, that it's unnecessary. I'd go toe to toe with that guy. I would say, yeah, tell me why this is unnecessary for you. And tell me about the brain science and why your brain is terminally unique from other addicted people. Sexually addicted people believe that sex is a need, and it's not. It's a wonderful, wonderful gift, and it's a wonderful thing that can bring a lot of joy and completeness to life. Without it for 90 days, you will not die.
All right. Our next listener's question was, what if we don't make it? Do we mess it all up?
No, you don't mess it all up. You have some choices. So you can decide to start all over if you want, or you just say, hey, we reconnected, and from here on out, for the whatever time you have left, say it's 36 days, for the next 36 days, we're going to work on being holding to our boundaries of no sex or arousal. That maybe you just need to be more intentional if you're the higher drive wife and you just want to have more conversations and then proceed with sexual intimacy. That's fine too. I mean, you're not going to mess it up, but I think we have to remember like we talked about the purpose of it in the last podcast. The purpose is to just grow in different kinds of connection and to help the addict know he won't die without it and to rewire his brain.
Yeah, I agree with that so much, because this is not I have to have. It's not a black and white thing. It's not like, oh, if we didn't make it, we messed it all up. Oh, we goofed. We can't do this. And to be fair, there may be some addicted people who go 90 days and they're still in that addictive mindset. They haven't learned any new tools. If you don't replace those coping mechanisms with another healthy coping mechanism, you could be right back where you were. But I don't want that to deter anybody. This is like an incredible opportunity. And yeah, give yourself grace and be flexible. And I would say fail forward. Any progress you make, if you make it 7 days, that's 7 days of progress. Give yourself some grace.
I'm just being a realist here. The bullet points or the recap that we gave at the end of the last podcast, where we talked about connect differently, start talking to one another, sharing intimate thoughts and feelings, right? What that instruction really was, if you zoom out, that's emotional intimacy. And for so many couples, and especially in my own, emotional intimacy was one of the greatest things that I craved. And so when that emotional connection starts happening, sometimes things like there's an urge to want to be physical.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to be like, call that out and be real about this and being like, we're connecting in all these other ways. Like, this is amazing, because this is what it felt like when we were dating or when we first got married. We were emotionally connecting. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we're going to take this a step further. Hopefully, if that was the makeup of your guys' relationship. So I would say the same. I think there's a ton of grace in this. I think that there needs to be conversations about, do we start all over? Do we pick up from where we are? Pam, I think you mentioned you related to some of this to eating chips in the last podcast. And I'm thinking, if that were the example or the situation and I ate chips tomorrow, in our health food world, they would say, start with the next meal. If you make a mistake, you start with the next meal. So there you go. Let's see if we can implement that in this conversation too. So,
And I want to just expound on what you were saying, that about connecting emotionally kind of made you into him. That's because women's interest in sex does not mirror how a man is interested in sex. Women are very emotionally driven, even the higher drive wives. When you start connecting emotionally, it changes things. Yeah. And it's God designed it that way.
here's our next question. Does a 90-day sex fast begin on day 1 of sobriety or the start of recovery? If your spouse has been sober for a while, but not yet in recovery, is celibacy still effective / beneficial?
In my personal experience, our sex fast did start day 1 of sobriety because, frankly, I wasn't going to have sex with him because we needed to get some sobriety and recovery under our belt. And I did not feel safe. That's what that boils down to. I did not feel safe. I needed to feel safe with his behaviors. I wasn't seeing safe behaviors yet. So, yeah, it can start day 1.
I think it's a conversation, right? It's a conversation that you have, and you each talk about what your needs and what your goals are for it, and does it meet our current situation? I know it's a difficult conversation to have because you may come from different vantage points. I think ultimately the couple has to decide, and that's the whole point, is there are no cookie cutter right or wrong answers. I wish there were.
Yeah.
That's
So if your spouse has been sober for a while, but not yet in recovery, is celibacy still beneficial? I mean, if the wife feels safer having this, no matter where he is in recovery, I believe it can be, because you change your focus from sex to relationship building. And that is what's going to keep you feeling safe, as well as in the long run help his recovery.
Yeah, I think a bit of a extra that I would add to this is we have to be mindful that oftentimes guys will step into recovery or even sobriety before their wife ever steps into her own healing journey. And so I could see how this would have played out in our story, where my husband was in group. He had the language of 90-day sex fast. I didn't have language like, what makes me safe? What do I need? What are boundaries? I had none of that language. And so I certainly have seen wives in my coaching work and in groups and things like that, where they have needed to almost essentially say, I know we've been clean for a while, but I need a 90-day sex fast. I know that you're sober. I know you're in recovery. I still need the break, because she's trying to establish and determine what is safe for her and what's not. And it's just become a part of their pattern. So I could certainly see that. I mean, I appreciate the listener's question, and I could see how it would definitely be very helpful for her if she is just now stepping into her own recovery and healing.
You can negotiate what's right for you. Maybe for you it's 30 days or 60 days or 120 days even, that you need to figure out what each couple needs or what each individual needs and negotiate that.
I'll throw in a fun fact. The reason it's 90 days, because it takes 90 days to get heroin out of the hair follicle. So there's like a body reset is there's a brain reset in 90 days. That's why the 90 days.
Mhm.
But you can do whatever amount of days you want to do.
Next question. What if your spouse hasn't desired you in months since his last slip up, and therefore you're in a forced sexual fast that wasn't mutually planned? I'm going to speak to this first. I wouldn't call this a sexual fast.
No.
I would call this an intimacy avoidance, or Pam, I think you've got better language around this, but I wouldn't call this a sexual fast, because a fast has an intent and purpose to it. And that's more of resistance and lack of connection. So what would you add to that, Pam?
I would say that's neglect. That's a form of relational neglect. Neglect once or twice is neglect, but a repeated pattern of neglect is actually a form of abuse.
I would just like to say that for spouses in the situation where you have been neglected, that, we hear you. That's painful. And I'm sorry. He needs some more work. And you can't force them. We can't control their work. So you set boundaries around what you need. And maybe you need him to seek some sexual anorexia therapy.
I just wanted to say that for any kind of anorexia, whether it's, what is out there is called intimacy anorexia or sexual anorexia, you're right. We can't control what our partners do for their own recovery. And in situations like that, we even more have to dig into our own self-nurturance, self-care, especially leaning into the Lord, talking to the Lord about it, because that's one place where you will have intimacy, you will be heard, seen, and known. And it's tough. These wives have to do more work. It's harder for them. They have to really dig in and be even more mindful about self-nurturance.
And I want to be sensitive. Like, I want to say, hey, we literally just threw a bunch of really important terms around based on probably 20 words in a question. However, given experience, I think it's easy for us to get to that place of saying, oh, this is what this looks like. As I reread the question, there's parts of me that gets really curious about what is going on for the spouse. I know that for a lot of guys, shame is something that holds them hostage. There's no other word for it. And so the slip up could have ignited new levels of shame, and therefore he's not able to move through those. So for her, if she's our listener, I would say encourage him to get back into his support. The therapist has got to help explore those things. And there's nothing inappropriate about you saying, this is important to me. We have not been intimate in X amount of months. Can I ask you to please go explore that with your support system, whatever that looks like. And that she may feel hopeless at this point, is like, oh, we've already done that. But I think until he gets some levels of breakthrough, awareness, understanding of himself, it's difficult for him to show up. And so I think what Pam just said about having to also be very sensitive to your own self-nurture is going to be a part of this puzzle in answering this question. So thanks for your words, Pam. That's great.
You're welcome. And the only other thing I would add is there's power in your voice. I know it's frustrating and I know you can feel hopeless, but continue to use your voice. Continue to say, when this happens or doesn't happen, this is how I feel. These are my emotions. Would you consider doing some more work around this? Because I need. And that's the nonviolent communication method. That's just really taking ownership for your own feelings, but yet still using your voice, which is so important, to make a request. And don't keep silent about it. That's a kind way to make a request.
Yeah, just last thought is that a healthy sex life is part of a healthy marriage. You can build something new and different where if you are the lower drive, sexual interest can be reboosted. If you're the husband who has some aversion, I will say gently, a healthy sex life is a part of a healthy marriage. So, please look into that.
Thank you, ladies, so much for revisiting this topic with me and with our listeners. I really appreciate that. And so we just want to thank you for joining us. We hope that we've been a bright spot in your recovery journey. If you'd like to leave us a question or comment, please go through the contact button on our website. Also, help a friend by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes so that others can find us. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.